Well, it's 11 p.m. on a Saturday, and we are pulling into LA for the evening. You can see downtown up ahead, all the skyscrapers and whatnot. We're not going to stop there, obviously. It's a very pretty evening so far. We've been driving for basically, well, it's 11 p.m. We hit the road at about 9 a.m. So we've been at it for about 14 hours. We had a trailer that we filled up yesterday, Friday afternoon, all the way down by the border, by the Mexican border, with supplies and equipment that we had to get to Las Vegas before the weekend was over. So we just drove them out there this morning. And we left, where were we last night? Foothill Ranch in Orange County at about 9 this morning. Drove a couple hundred miles. Got into Las Vegas at about 1:30. And we had to do a lot to the supplies that we were unloading. And so we got done with that by about 4. It took about 2.5 hours to get unloaded and everything properly handled. And then we spent about an hour doing one or two other things in Las Vegas, and then got right back on the road to bring the trailer back to Southern California. So we left at maybe 5. Got into San Clemente at around 9:30 or so. Maybe 10. Dropped off the trailer. It was just a U-Haul, because we don't actually have any company-owned trailers out here just yet. All our trailers are back in Michigan. So we had to rent a U-Haul for like a day and a half. And got that dropped off at about 10. And then got on the road to LA. And here we are pulling in. We got about 15 minutes left to go to get exactly where we're going. Just on the other side of the Hollywood Hills. No big deal. And one thing I'll point out is that for this leg of the trip, we're at exactly 23 miles to the gallon. We've gone almost an hour, about 60 miles. There's downtown LA, if you can see it, by the way. It's very pretty from a distance. We've gone just under 60 miles in just under an hour, and we've been on Interstate 5 the entire time, through Orange County, and then through Long Beach area, Santa Ana, that type of thing. And then into LA, and now through LA. And 23 miles to the gallon is probably the best that we've seen in the entire month and a half we've owned this truck. We put almost 7,500 miles on it in a month and a half. We drive thousands of miles a month, every month. And to get 23 miles to the gallon on the highway doing, let's just say between 65 and 75, that is easily the best we've gotten over any extended amount of time. So, it's possible that the truck is just getting broken in. It's only, again, it's got only about 7,500 miles on it. So, the internal components, the piston rings get seated. Everything not necessarily wears itself together, but it's a brand new engine is very, very tight in terms of the tolerances between all the moving parts. And so, yeah, it's going to have a lot more friction. And so your mileage isn't going to be quite as good. But for whatever reason, this evening, we have probably gotten about our best ever gas mileage. Of now 23.1. So a couple observations for the two legs we did earlier. one of which was Orange County to Las Vegas, and then the second was Las Vegas back to Orange County this afternoon. Our gas mileage going out was about 10 miles to the gallon. Our gas mileage coming back was about 13, so the average is about, I'd say, 11 and a half. Highway speeds between 65 and 75. Pulling a 12-foot trailer, fully enclosed. And so that's a better number. An average of 11 and a half, that's a better number than we've observed in the past. You know, back in Michigan, driving a 12-foot enclosed trailer that we own, we've gotten between 6 and 10 miles to the gallon. So for both the towing, the outbound and the return, if you average those two, and for this leg here, which is non-towing, where we're getting 23 miles to the gallon, you know, it's almost, again, it's like the truck is getting broken in and starting to, figure out how to actually get down the road with some degree of fuel efficiency. You will notice that there's a little bit of motion in the camera, and that's because the highways here are kind of in rough shape, case in point. But I would say with this truck, the springs, whoever did the calibration on the suspension with the springs and the shocks did a really, really good job, because the ride is just not bad. You're not getting pounded and punished by the truck. And it's got a very large, for a light-duty pickup, the F-150s tend to have a very, very high payload rating, large payload rating. And that's because they got an aluminum body. And so, we talked about it earlier, Ford saved something like 800 pounds of weight by making the body out of aluminum. It's obviously still got a steel frame, but everything that's not the frame, the fenders, the entire front end, the hood, the roof, the passenger compartment, all of that is made out of aluminum. The bed. And by saving 800 pounds on the way to the body, they turned right back around and gave you 800 pounds of extra payload. And so there are some configurations for this truck where you can haul something like a 3,000 pound payload, which is miraculous in a light duty pickup. And again, in a month and a half of driving 7,500 miles, we've been on all kinds of roads with this thing, and the ride is much smoother than we're used to. Our reference points are, well, our previous F-150 was a 1997 extended cab, long bed, 4-wheel drive with the 4.6 V8 and the manual transmission. And that thing had an absolutely punishing ride. Torsion bars in the front, obviously leaf springs in the back, and that would make your teeth rattle, especially without any kind of a load in the bed. This thing, quite the opposite. It's got a very, very smooth ride, almost like an SUV quality ride. Looks like we got some modern art on the right there. Not sure what that is. So great job to whoever did that. We've talked at length about our concerns about the payload rating for the rear axle. We wish it was actually a little more. On this one, it's definitely not 3,000 pounds. Not on the hybrid with the 6.5 foot bed and 4-wheel drive. It's more like, 1,200, 1,500. We know it can it can take up to 1,400 pounds of tongue weight on a conventional hitch if you've got a weight distributing hitch, but it takes a lot less if you're using a fifth wheel or a gooseneck. It can only take, I think, about 800 or 1,000 pounds of pin weight, and that's unfortunate. But regardless, they did a very good job of making this truck comfortable to ride in. And we've been going, like I said, for 14 hours today, pretty much nonstop. And you don't get out of it after a long day of driving and have like a sore back and a stiff neck and your joints hurt from just getting rattled all day. like we used to in that old F-150 of ours, the 1997, or in our 2003 Ram 3500 with the Cummins. That thing feels like it doesn't even have springs. I mean, when you hit a bump, it's like an impact. You know, you almost feel like you're going to crack the windshield if you hit a big enough bump. So great job to whoever sorted out the ride and handling on this thing. It handles the tongue weight of a trailer just fine, and it handles. We've had it loaded with, I don't know, 600 pounds, 700 pounds of cargo before, and it handles that just fine as well. So great job. Yeah, the temp is in the low 60s tonight. To our exit. But again, for a truck that you're going to spend a lot of time in, you want something like this. You do not want an electric vehicle. The Tesla, the Cybertruck that's coming out, you know, we wish all the best to the people who've ordered one and who are going to buy one. And as long as all they're doing is getting around in the city with it, maybe driving an hour or two at a time, or 3 hours. It supposedly has somewhere between 250 and 500 miles of range without a trailer. And, you know, that remains to be seen. We certainly, you know, for their sake, we hope it does.
147 toward Empire Avenue.
But for the kind of work we do, which is driving all day, sometimes with a trailer, an electric vehicle is completely impractical. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. What I do see happening is, well, maybe they'll start putting a hybrid system into the Super Duty, and maybe they'll put an actual 15 or 20 or 25 kilowatt hour battery, so it can actually hold some charge. Maybe 50 kilowatt hours. And if it can do that, then the hybrid system will actually save you a decent amount of gas compared to this one, which saves you very, very little gas. And so for our purposes, all we're ever going to be able to work with probably is a hybrid pickup truck, especially when we're talking about a heavy duty. You know, a 2500, 3500 series truck. There's no way an EV is ever going to cut it. You know, there's ranchers that have to tow a horse trailer, you know, 500, 800 miles in a day down the road. You know, and it's cold weather and there's snow coming in. An electric vehicle loses like 30-40% of its range in cold weather. And we know Tesla's working on fixing that with the heat pump that they put in the Model Y, which I guess is
half a mile. Take exit 147 toward Empire Avenue.
Which I guess is going in the Model 3 now. But there's just so many issues with electric vehicles that remain to be settled, mostly related to range. That an electric pickup is not going to happen anytime. It's not in our future, that's for sure.
Take exit 147, then keep left at the fork.
But this truck, the hybrid towing a trailer all day.
Keep left at the fork, then slide left onto Empire Avenue.
This is absolutely the truck for that job.
Slide left onto Empire Avenue, North San Fernando Boulevard. In a quarter mile, turn left at Valparaiso Street.
I do have to say, being in California and paying California prices for gasoline, I don't know how these people survive. We saw $4.50 a gallon as like the going rate for regular unleaded for 87. And that's all we burn. That's all we run on this thing. We're not putting 93 in it because it doesn't need it.
Turn left at Valparaiso Street, then turn right.
There's like an ongoing debate as to whether 87 or 93 is the best fuel to run in.
Turn right, then turn right.
In the EcoBoost. And we have been running 87 since the start with no issues. we're pulling in our hotel here. But yeah, the headline is that, again, this engine, the 3.5 EcoBoost, we've been very, very impressed with it for almost the full 7,500 miles we've been driving. It's got no issues, no hiccups, no concerns of any kind. A lot of people say the 2.7 is actually a better engine. And we've started to kind of investigate that and look into that. And, you know, the people who have a 2.7 EcoBoost, they swear by it. They also say it's got no issues with cam phasers dying on you like the 3.5 does. They also say certain other issues like, I don't know, turbos and you know, other things that tend to go bad don't tend to go bad on the 2.7 because it was designed from the ground up as a pickup truck engine. The engine block is made out of CGI, compacted graphite iron. It's the same stuff they make diesel engine blocks out of. Everything about it's very, very strong, very, very purpose built, and so we're thinking about, you know, for our next project vehicle, we are thinking long and hard about whether to get the 2.7 EcoBoost. Everybody that we've heard talking about it has said great things about it. But given the fact that we absolutely wanted the hybrid, and we, because of the Pro Power on board system, this was the only choice we had at the time. Now, if they put the hybrid on the 2.7, I would be, I'd be surprised if a lot of people didn't end up going for that one. The hybrid on the 5.0, the V8, it's an open question whether or not the V8's still going to be here in a few more years. We think that was kind of a placeholder, just to sort of give the old traditionalists, gray-haired people like us, a little bit of a comfort level so that we could ease into the future with these turbocharged small V6s. But yeah, the 2.7, everybody we've talked to and heard talking about it said it's a great engine. And so our final gas mileage for this leg of the trip, as you see there, 23.4 miles to the gallon. That is absolutely the best we've ever seen in this truck. A lot of people have said, hey, what the hell's the matter with your hybrid? You're only getting 18 to 20, maybe 21. I'm getting 23 in my 5.0. I'm getting 25 in my 2.7. Well, there you have it. The hybrid has now set a new record as far as we're concerned. 23 and a half, 23.4 in about an hour of driving at speeds of about 65 to 75. And again, after 11 hours, what did we say? 14 hours, starting at 9 a.m. today. 14 hours of pretty much continuous driving. This truck has done an exceptionally good job dragging a 12-foot trailer, fully loaded, from Orange County out to Las Vegas, and then Las Vegas back down to Orange County, where we dropped it off, and then up to LA for the evening. Subject to all those quibbles we've had with it in the past, again, we're overall very, very impressed with it. And we'll throw one last issue onto the table. The sync system and the CarPlay, which has like your Spotify music, it's got your phone, it's got your Google Maps, you can have your Apple Music, your podcasts, I don't know why the hell you'd read your news while you're driving, but there it is. Okay, it actually plays like audio news, and that's kind of neat. That system overall has worked out just great for us. Sync 4 is a wireless version of Sync. You don't have to actually plug your phone into the truck to get Sync to work. And it does that by actually connecting between the truck and your phone with Wi-Fi, unbeknownst to you. And in 99% of the cases we've used it, in the times we've used it, it's worked out just fine. It's worked out exceptionally well. We haven't had any glitches and hiccups and stupid little software problems. But I would say one thing that's happened both times now that we've driven south from Las Vegas to Southern California, when you go through like the Apple Valley area near Victorville, it starts to kind of cut out a little bit, the connection between your phone and the truck, and you start to have it kind of cuts in and out, and there's no real rhyme or reason to it. But we had some music playing on our Spotify, and then I think another time we had some music playing on our Apple Music, and it would just kind of, you'd hear it kind of popping and cutting in and out for about a 10 or 15 minute period. And I don't know if we were next to some power lines or, it was Bill Gates and the 5G or what the hell was going on. But it's the first time in, again, 7,500 miles almost of driving with this truck that we've had any issues of any kind with CarPlay. And so it was noticeable, and it happened in the same place both times we drove through it. Last Wednesday, I'm sorry. And also this afternoon, which is a Saturday. So we thought we'd pass that along in case anybody else has experienced the same thing. So I think that's all for now. Hope you all are having a pleasant evening, and we will talk to you again soon.